So good morning. It's coming up to 7 AM on Friday the 24th of September and I'm off out on a 200-kilometre DIY today. It's the second one I've done this week. Earlier in the week I went south. Today I'm going east. More specifically, I'm going to ride round and visit all 8 Wiltshire White Horses. Seemed an appropriate place here for those 2 horses to do my introduction. I'm in the entrance to Road Manor. I'm already about 9 miles into my ride. I set off at 45 minutes earlier than normal. I'll explain why later in the video. And I'm also aware that I haven't done any cycling videos recently. I've been off doing other things, including a holiday in Blackpool, the first holiday me and Linda have had for 18 months. We went up to see the illuminations. Stick around and I'll put a montage of the best bits at the end of this video. Back to today's ride then. I'm riding around an anti-clockwise route. It's vaguely in the shape of a horse. Let me know what you think, possibly more like a reindeer. I'm visiting all 8 Wiltshire White Horses, so without any further ado, let's get going. Hey, just like Doctor Who's TARDIS, I've rematerialised on the Bratton Road, the other side of the town of Westbury. Right behind me is the first of our white horses today, Westbury White Horse. That is the biggest one and probably the most well-known one. You see it for miles coming in, and you also see lots of references, well, a bit like this really. I've just ridden in from Westbury that way. There's this really nice viewing area, gravel car park here with some information boards, and this is probably one of the best views of it actually. If I zoom in, it's in shadow at the moment because the sun's just about to rise behind it. There is a road back that way towards Westbury that turns off and goes up onto that big escarpment. It's called Bratton Camp up there. In fact, I did a wild camp up there last autumn. I'll put one of those boxes link things in the top of the screen now if you want to see that. There's a link to it. On cue, the sun's coming up right behind the white horse, which is bleaching it out, and also that noise behind me is a JCB. Typical. Anybody who makes YouTube videos will know that. You try and find somewhere to do some quiet filming and that's what happens. Anyway, I'm not going to talk too much about the horses themselves. There's a really good website. I'll drop a link to it in the description below. That's where I got all my information from and help plan this route. Anyway, I'm going to press on now. I'm going to do a direction change, head north slightly up to the second of today's 8 white horses, Devizes White Horse. I'll see you there. Hello again. I'm now at Roundway Farm and it's just on the outskirts of Devizes, and behind me is the second of today's white horses. We're actually seeing it almost like looking down the side of the screen here. A few miles time we'll be looking at it more at 90 degrees, but this is quite a nice view actually. I'm going to have breakfast just around the corner, but just quickly, briefly, there's 8 Wiltshire White Horses remaining. There did used to be 15, some are buried and some have just been lost forever. There used to be a Devizes old horse, no longer there. This is Devizes new horse, relatively recently, I think in the 1990s, or again, probably put it on screen right now. Of the 8 white horses, 7 of them face right to left. This one is the odd one out. It faces left to right. Anyway, breakfast at Subway round the corner. Probably after eat it outside. Then I'll ride along towards Pewsey, and then there's 3 horses, one after the other. You'll see this one side on. Then Alton Barnes, the next one. There's something really interesting about that. I'll tell you when I get there. And then a few miles after that, Pewsey. Anyway, breakfast. Just a few miles along from Devizes that way, right behind me, is the third of today's white horses, Alton Barnes White Horse. I bivvied up there on top of that hill on Midsummer's Night 2016. In fact, I meant to bivvy by the horse, but when I got there, there's some New Age travellers, and I think it may have been okay, but I just wanted my own space, so I moved away a bit. I did a film of that as well, so again, I'll put a link in one of those boxes up in the top of the screen now. What's great about this horse is they occasionally put lamps around the outline of it and light them after dark, coloured lanterns, and it looks really spectacular. I've never seen it, but I'll put a couple of pictures on the screen now that I just screen grabbed off the internet. I'm in the heart of the Vale of Pewsey, or the Pewsey Vale, however people choose to pronounce it. It's quite a flat area with the Wiltshire Downs behind me, and there's three horses, one at either end and this one in the middle. So Devizes was back there, literally just a few miles. There's this one, and as we climb out of the Vale of Pewsey, we'll be going up past Pewsey White Horse. These hills behind me, they're very sort of rounded at the Wiltshire Downs, always make me think of the mountains on the moon when the Apollo astronauts started to land in the mountainous areas. Why? Because as a child I'd followed the Apollo program leading up to moon landings, and if you look at all the pre-Apollo science fiction and the space art, it was assumed because there was no atmosphere on the moon, the mountains would be all jagged because there would have been no erosion by weather. When they actually got there, you'll see from the old footage from the 1970s, they were all rounded. So why was that? Because there was no atmosphere, paradoxically. Unlike on Earth, all the space dust had actually ground them down more abrasively than actual rainfall. Anyway, back on point, this film's supposed to be about white horses. Going to head that way now. Next stop, Pewsey White Horse. Climbing out of the Pewsey Vale there, and then there's a bit of rough stuff. And I'll tell you why I started out early this morning when I get to Pewsey White Horse. So again, see you there. I'm now at Pewsey White Horse. To be honest, it's quite underwhelming today because there's a lot of glare, it's quite small, it's set back from the road a bit, and it's also gone very green. It's actually quite hard to make out. On that hill behind me, I'm going to be riding up that, you'll see the road running up alongside it. There's like a square boundary. And the horses inside that, I'll actually put a screen grab from the internet of it in better conditions on the screen now. Really lovely encounter. I just stopped to do this little bit of filming, and three cyclists just pulled up and said, "Are you looking at the horse?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "That's what we're looking for." It's a bit underwhelming, isn't it? We all agreed it is today. They're actually riding around all the 8 white horses. They're doing it over 2 days, and then they're going to organise a big group bike ride because apparently they've had a lot of interest in it. It's quite reassuring actually, I'm not the only geeky one. So the reason I left this morning was it's getting much colder and darker in the mornings now, and as I came off the 2 tunnels to go up Midford Hill out the valley, there's a couple of nasty blind bends, and I don't like doing that at rush hour, and 7:15 onwards when I would have got there normally, it can feel a bit dangerous. So that's the reason I left at 6:15 this morning, just to avoid that. But it was lovely going up there, as you'll see from these pictures. Anyway, up yonder you may see the course of the road up there. Now about halfway up the hill, you'll see it snakes around there and then carries on up there by those posts. This is a slightly better view of the horse There is a place, it's a small brow of a hill south of Bishop's Cannings, and there you can see 3 of the horses there. It's this one, Pewsey, Alton Barnes, the previous one, and the one before that, Devizes White Horse. You can't get them in a photograph. I guess if you had a 360 camera, you probably could, or maybe have a go. I once got 2 of them just very wide angle in a photograph, and I was quite pleased with myself for that until I got home and I put it on the laptop and you could hardly see them. They were like little dots. Because this white horse has been a bit underwhelming from a distance, I thought I'd have a wander down and show you. I left my bike by the road there. You'll see it across the stile. Walk down here. I'm really in shadow here. There's a good information board there telling about all the horses, and that's the outline of the horse there. I'll go in and show you in a minute. But can you see there's an old railway line there dismantled? About a half a mile on this road after passing the White Horse at the summit, there's a couple of dips and you get to this little crossroads here of byways. So I'm going to turn left there towards Milton Farm. This is quite a hard compact surface most of the way along here. If you come after the rain, it may be a bit muddy further along through the trees, but it's metalled for most of this section, and then it splits under some trees, and I think we fork off left as we start heading across towards Marlborough. The other guys have actually backtracked that way. They were going to go to Alton Barnes and then go to Marlborough that way, so I may well see them later on. I'm sort of half hoping I do actually. Back at the foot of the hill looking up at Pewsey Horse, I mentioned about the cooler, darker mornings of September. Just to be very clear, I actually love autumn. It's one of my favourite seasons, the transition and the changing colours and the different wildlife you're going to see, the migration, that sort of thing. The sunsets and sunrises. Just means being a little bit more organised. Today's a good example. I just had to bring out warmer clothes, and now I've had to change because I'm just so hot at the moment. And also just planning the early start this morning. I didn't want to be on a busy rush hour road at sunrise where the traffic's starting to build up. People, including myself, are probably still half asleep. I've just come along this metal track, and as it bends round to the right down towards this farm, you fork off the left here, and it can get a little bit muddy along here. You can see 4-wheel drives go down there, so if a Land Rover can get along there, a bicycle certainly can, but I would avoid this after rain because it can get quite boggy along here. After a short section through the woods, it just suddenly transformed into a metal road again, like a farm road, and you descend this quite spectacular hill, and then you're coming into this village. Well, that's the way I've just come. You can see unsuitable for motors. And then I'm coming into this village, so I need to press on really for time, so I'm going to head that way. It's quite a lot of main road anyway, and then I'll see you as I come in towards Marlborough. I've just done a couple of miles on the quite busy A345, and I'm starting to snake down towards Marlborough, bottom of this hill. But on this sharp deviation, right hand bend, you turn off left to the village I can't remember the name of. What we're going to do in effect is do a big sweep round and then rejoin this hill right at the bottom as it comes into Marlborough High Street. Marlborough White Horse is the hardest to find of the 8. It's quite tucked away. In fact, although I had a GPS track, I actually had to have help to find it the first time. I'll explain why when I get down there away from this main road. We're now down on the outskirts of Marlborough in the village of Alton, the village I can't remember the name of. That road there would take you back to main road, so you turn down this no-through road. You'll see it there, along here. And the first time I rode this route to have a look at all 8 white horses, I knew I was going the right way because the Garmin pointed me along here, but I just didn't really know what I was looking for. I kept thinking, oh, I'm away from any hills. I was expecting it to be all like the others, cut into a hillside, so I was a bit wary that I might have missed it. And I asked someone around here, I sort of said, excuse me, can you tell me where the White Horse is? And they sort of said, well, which one? There's several. And I said, Marlborough, this one. And they went, oh, right. And you could tell they were sort of quite chuffed that someone had come to look at their horse. And they said, you'd go along here to the end of the car park and you cut through some school grounds and it's behind some tennis courts. So that's exactly what we do now. This is the other end of that no-through road. So you come to this orange building. Round there would be the churchyard, through the wooden gates, the church car park, and then you bear to the right of the car park and then fork round to the left. We're actually going through some school playing fields there. You'll start to see some tennis courts. 100 yards along this track then, there's the tennis courts that side. There's the church over there through that gap. You may hear some bagpipes in the distance. And then the road swings round, we're going this way. You'll see there's a little entrance in some more playing fields there. And then some more tennis courts there on the right. And the White Horse is just the other side of those. There's an information board after a few yards confirming it. And then the horse itself is behind the tennis courts. I'll try and zoom in. There you go. This is the way we're heading. Then just the other side of this hockey field, I think it is, there's the horse up there. Again, the sun's just bleaching it in its glare. I'm not complaining though, it's a lovely day. Anyway, you're going to follow this along here. It's perfectly rideable, and then it would join that road coming down the hill steeply. Turn left and you're virtually in Marlborough High Street. It's now 1 PM and I'm in busy Marlborough and it's baking hot. I probably should go over the road and sit in the churchyard and get some shade, but because it's coming towards the end of the summer, I want to make the most of this. I've had my lunch on this seat in very busy and very sunny Marlborough. I'm now going to turn off the high street up there, quite a long steep climb up over the Marlborough Downs, head up past Marlborough Racecourse up to the summit where the Ridgeway footpath crosses the road, and then there's a long steep drop down, and looking back that would be the next White Horse, Hackpen. I'm on the long drag up past the racecourse to Hackpen Hill now, but this sign brings back a memory. A number of years ago when I was still a postman, I had a couple of days off and I rode round the Wiltshire Cycleway over 2 days in the winter, and I spent the overnight at Cliff Pippard Youth Hostel. What it was just actually a converted skittle alley behind the pub. But anyway, coming up here, it was mid-February, and I got to about here and it became a bit cold and icy and gritty, and then gradually the snow got deeper and deeper and deeper, and by the time I got to Hackpen Hill, it was like up to my, well, over my knees anyway, not quite up to my crutch area, and I was trying to drag my bike through it, and it's starting to get dark, and you start having all these thoughts like, gosh, if I sort of was to slip now and break an ankle, nobody would know I'm up here. And then of course, the payback going down the descent onto lower ground, I had to walk down there because it was treacherous ice. And cut long story short, by the time I got to youth hostel, I was on the verge of exposure. What a contrast to today. We're at the summit of that long climb, and this is where the Ridgeway, the long distance footpath, crosses the road. There's the signs. And just behind those two horses in this field, over the edge of this hill where that lady's walking down, is Hackpen White Horse. As I was grinding up this way, it's a long gradual climb. The three cyclists from this morning came hurtling down. Actually, I had my back to them. I stopped for a comfort stop, so I don't know if they spotted me, but I could hardly turn around. I just heard them and saw them as they disappeared. Anyway, I'm going to plunge down this massive descent. At the bottom of the hill, I'll talk to you facing the horse. I've just come down from where those trees were, the big S-bend down there, and then looking right back at the horse carved in below the tree there. You may imagine the Wiltshire White Horses to be ancient. In fact, they were all carved within about the last 300 years. Uffington White Horse in the neighbouring county of Oxfordshire, that is really prehistoric. Now looking back in the direction we've come, there's a white horse there near the line of the top of the hill, just below that clump of trees. So what we're going to do is cross this main road. That's Devizes that way, Swindon that way. We're going to go across this staggered crossroads and do a circuit and then come back. So we'll keep looking back and getting some views of that as we head down towards Avebury. So the next horse is going to be on part of this circuit. We're going to go around it in a anti-clockwise direction because it's easy to miss the next horse otherwise. And if you do accept this route vaguely resembles a horse, well, Marlborough would have been at its nose. We're currently on the head, and this circuit we're going to do would be his ear. When we finish this circuit, then we'll head down that way to the last of the 8, Cherhill. First up though, Broadtown White Horse on this circuit we're about to do. Looking back the direction we came, when we crossed that Swindon to Devizes Road, we then dropped down over a ridge, and right in front of us you can see there's Broadtown White Horse. We will get a better view shortly, but that's the first view of it. I'm now just leaving the village of Cliff Pippard. This is where I said years ago there was temporarily a youth hostel which had been built in the old skittle alley of a pub. I mean, the plus side of that was you didn't have far to come home if you wanted to go out for a drink. As I said, I dropped down off that big ridge from Broadhinton to Broadtown to have a side-on view of the White Horse, and now, payback time, I've got to ride back up there. As I climb out of Cliff Pippard then, I've just passed the 7th of my 8 white horses. So as regards my project today, I'm 7/8 completed, although distance wise I'm barely halfway round. Just passing through Avebury, I very rarely stop here, it's a bit too John Lewisy for me. I'm going to press on to the roundabout, join the A4, there's a long slog up to Cherhill itself, and then as you drop down you'll see the White Horse on the left hand side. After a mile or so on the A4, this is the main coach road from Bath to London. It's what preceded the M4. This is the top of Cherhill, and there's Cherhill Horse over there. Actually, this is my favourite of all of them. I'll explain why shortly, but it's, again, like Pewsey this morning, it's gone very green and brown. It really needs a whitewash. You'll see just along from it there's that tower there. I think that's called Cherhill Tower. The guys were asking me what it was called this morning and I couldn't remember. The reason then why that is my favourite of the horses is the first of the 8s I ever rode by. I'd passed Westbury White Horse in a car on a train, but this is the first one I ever rode by. It was a charity ride from Bath to London in the early 1980s. I'd only just ridden the London to Brighton ride and enjoyed that so much I entered this because it's from my hometown, and it rode right up past here. I remember being really impressed by that. That was when I just rediscovered cycling. I'd always cycled as a child, and then I got back into it. A friend we worked with asked me and my wife to look after him and his wife's bikes while he went off to Denmark, and we really got into riding them. And then he came back, they'd split up, and he asked for his bike back, and I was, oh no, what am I going to do now? My mum gave me some money for my 21st birthday, and I put it towards a rally steel bike, you know, one of these ones with the mini mud guards and the dual levers, and it was my pride and joy, and that's what I rode this ride on. In fact, here's a picture of me then. Yeah, I know. If you cringe look at that, imagine how I feel looking back at that. In my own defence, I would say I was in my early 20s and everybody at the time was wearing TI Rally or Peugeot cycles tops, and I was determined not to try and look like a professional racing cyclist, because I'm not one. And so I just used to wear my old gym kit, and of course I soon learned the painful way you actually need proper cycling kit. Lastly, before I leave you, I did say I would explain why this route vaguely looks like a horse. It was in my very early DIY Audax days. I won't bore you with the details, but I was learning how to navigate around the system, and I fancied this as a 200k ride, and the more control points I started putting together, the more it vaguely resembled an animal, and I thought, could I make it look like a horse? And this is my best attempt, so that explains the shape of the route. Anyway, I've still got a long way to go back. In fact, I'm going to ride back by the Wiltshire White Horse, but you've already seen that footage because I put it in, although I haven't been there yet, I've put it in the early part of the film. In fact, thinking about it, I think I've just explained special relativity there without intending to. As I said earlier on, here's just a little montage of Blackpool illuminations last week. It's absolutely fantastic. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. I had a bit of a giggle with me. See you soon.